like you in the floor to ask me as many questions as you want. Also online, you will be able to use the chat function, put forward your questions. I would like you to ask also a question like, where are you joining us from? If you're not in the room, you can put your city, your country, the place from where you're joining us. And yeah, we will also use some Mentimeter and some other tools to really make sure that your points come across and you can really engage with our distinguished speakers today. Without further ado, I would hand over for some welcoming remarks to Philipp Hanna. He is the head of the European department at the Goethe-Institut in Brussels.
Thank you, Jan. Good morning, everyone, and I'm very happy to be here. Actually, when I was asked to welcome all of you, when I saw the title Wake Up Closing Conference, all that I have in mind was Bob Marley. Get up, stand up for your rights. I don't know if you all know this song, but that's, I hope maybe some of you are too young to remember this song. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, so dear Alicia Holmes, member of the European Parliament, dear Csaba Borboly, who is over there, member of the Committee of the Regions, dear partners from European Youth Forum and from OBESO, dear Wake Up Consortium partners, dear conference participants. It is great pleasure to welcome all of you at the Goethe-Institut in Brussels, online and offline. There. Okay. For the closing conference of Wake Up Your Vocation project. It's definitely not a vacation project. Yeah, so that's wishful thinking, but it's about a vocation project. It is good to be here today. More than 2 years of work are behind us, aiming to narrow the gap between the education system and the labor market, to better equip educators for career guidance and for delivering skills for future. More than 2 years of extensive consultations of creating new materials and drafting policy recommendations. Today, we want to present and discuss these outcomes with you. We want to exchange about skills for the future and how young people can better acquire them. As the European Year of Skills reminds us, skills are such an essential and powerful resource. At the Goethe-Institut, we experience daily what difference it makes when young people, for instance, learn a foreign language, even in the age of DeepL and Co., and hone their skills for creative engagement and collaboration. New skills are essential to navigate an increasingly complex world, to keep up with the technological and environmental changes. Skills are key for innovation in education and in the creative sector. In our societies and economies, they are also key to a more sustainable future. The frame in which we carried out the Wake Up project is our StartNet network. As one of our flagship and long-term education projects, StartNet supports the transition of young people from school to work by encouraging communities of shared practice, mutual learning, innovation, and collaboration of different stakeholders across Europe. In this very spirit, we are very much delighted to host today's event in close cooperation with our Wake Up Consortium partners, as well as all of you as our distinguished guests. I thank all of you for joining us, and I thank very much the StartNet team in Brussels, Victoria Buller, Julia Roman-Iolo, Jan Wilker, as well as from remote, Perla, Perla is online, yeah, and Stella Wirt-Benedetti. I wish you an insightful morning full of inspiring examples, rich discussions, and new learnings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Philipp, for these introduction words. Now, let's hear from the project. Let's hear from Alexis Reutmann from Fundación Santa María la Real, the project lead, to give us a brief overview of the outcomes of the project.
Okay. Well, thank you very much to the Goethe-Institut to have us here and organize all this amazing event. And I would like to thank to Knowledge at Work and Alpha, the other two partners of this project that we all together worked the last 2 years and create all these materials that I will present. And as Santa Maria La Real Foundation, we've been working on social inclusion and employment the last 40 years. Our main project is known as Launchpad Employment, and it's a good practice in the European Union and Latin America, where we help and train more than 20,000 people. And we strongly believe that one of the main issues regarding employment is the labor guidance. So that's why we create this project with these amazing partners. And we think that we have some tools to be used in the European schools, and hopefully you can use it here and online, and we want to share about what we created. Okay, so the content of the brief presentation will be the goals of the projects and the 3 results that we create. The third result will be presented by my colleague Vicky. It's about the policy recommendation. It's the one part of the project, and the first 2 parts are: first, we conducted the research about the study and visions and expectation of the students, teachers, but also families, parents, that are a key factor here also. And the result number 2 was, okay, we had this research, now we created content and tools, like it's a big manual with different tools to implement it, to be implemented in the schools. The main goal was mentioned is to reduce the existing gap between the formal education system and the labor market. And we worked in the employability, skills, and the labor market orientation. We had specific objectives, and we wanted to first understand the vision and expectation of young people. That's why we conducted a lot of surveys that we will see. And also we wanted to develop the knowledge and the skills of the teachers, because we know that the teachers lack lots of training, and we found that. And also we wanted to raise awareness among students and also their families about how the labor market reality is, because there is a lot of ignorance about the labor markets, and the teachers, they don't have time, and the students, they are worried about their futures. What about the main conclusions of the study on visions and expectations? As I mentioned, we conduct surveys and interviews with teachers, parents, and the focus was in high school, between 12 and 18-year-olds, okay? And we wanted to identify the needs and the possibilities of career guidance, okay? So when we did that, it was in 2022, we had more than 2,800 survey respondents. So we have many data and informations in Spain, Italy, and Croatia. Also, we interview experts on guidance and labor market orientation. Okay, what are the main conclusions? Of course, there is a gap between the vocational guidance needs and opportunities. Also, we found that parents, they want to take an advisory role rather than a commanding role. And also, an important issue is that the students identify the earning potential as the most important deciding factor. This is a key factor to take account. Also, we asked about the gender bias, and this was surprising because we found a contradiction here. The respondents said that there is no gender bias. It's not the influencing factor, but then when we look the other answers, we found that actually there is a gender bias, obviously. And for example, when we look the different answers between girls and boys, there is a strong differences between especially careers related with technologies and the digital field. Of course, this is changing with time, and there's a lot of European projects in this subject, but we found that there is a difference. But students think that there is not the difference. I think this is a key factor and an interesting factor to maybe do more research. Also, we found some obstacles. Of course, there is no up-to-date information about labor market within students, parents, and also teachers. There is a really lack of time and human resources in school for this subject. And of course, there is a lack of training for teachers. And another important issue is that teachers identify that this is a key factor, but they think that they should be trained and the students need their support, but they think they are not able to do it and they don't have enough training. As I said, also the parents think that this is an important task, but only almost 18% of the parents have talked with the teacher about this subject. So they are worried about that, but they don't express it or they don't do things about it, and maybe they don't have the information. Okay, then we identified the different attributes that teachers think that they should have, like a up-to-date update on options and training routes, or update on the labor market. And all this information is in the study that you can download from our web. Okay, the second result and the second step was to, with this all this information, we create a methodological guide for teacher trainings, because we wanted to work especially with teachers in the schools. Okay, we worked with more than 30 schools in all the 3 countries, and we create this guide. What was the goal of the guide? Was to, of course, to create a handbook for teachers to address the vulnerabilities of the young population. Okay, some specific objectives: to create the contents and practical activities, work on managing emotions, create participatory methodologies and social innovations. And of course, we wanted to put the students in the center of the process. Okay, so the idea was, because this is Erasmus Plus and this is a consortium of different countries, was very important to create a guide that can be adapted. So the guide and all the material, the guide has like more than 300 pages, you can adapt the different tools to different contexts. You can work on public schools, private schools, and you can work on outside the school also with youth workers, and to different countries. We take account on this. About the modules that we work, we had 6 modules where we create all these activities, like a career guidance for the future, a module on discovering my talents and motivations, other module about skills and competences for the future of work, and other vocational training opportunities. Of course, we work a lot with digital transition and green transition, and also with women's participation in STEAM careers. Also, we add some careers, degrees, and other trainings like source for the teachers. And finally, we add a module about the entrepreneurship that we think is another key factor. We like this quote about from Hans van der Loo that says that today we are educating our young people for jobs that do not yet exist in order to solve problems that we are not yet even aware of. Okay, this was the spirit of the work that we conducted. And some important factor that we took account is that the career guidance is not just the choice of the career. It's not just one isolated action. It's a process. So we think that this manual and the whole project is supporting this process of career guidance. And the main goal was to empowering through emotional management, knowledge, and experience. Okay, we had 2 pillars, that is meaningful learning and project-based learnings. So all the activities had this inside. And another fundamental principles are to stimulate the ability to be self-motivated and the ability to work collaboratively, because we found that this is very important in the labor market, and we create very practical tools to work on this and create the competencies within the class. Okay. Also, the whole manual has these 3 pillars: the self-awareness, the information management, and the decision making. Okay, so this all this is very important in the methodology that we created, and all these the source of all this is the surveys and the interviews that where we found that this is very important. Or also the experience that all the consortium, the 4 partners, previously having other projects and working in labor market and in all the projects that we have fighting the unemployment. And finally, we did this research, we created the manual, and then we test the manual. We did a lot of piloting. So we test this manual in more than 400 parents, almost 1,000 students, and more than 150 teachers, and keep going because the process is almost finished, but we are continue with this. So we readapt the manual with the findings after we test it, and the positive feedback is really good. So this is the end of the first 2 results. So now the 3rd result is about the policy recommendations. So my colleague Vicky is going to present. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexis. As explained before, these were the first 2 results of the Wake Up Your Vocation project, and I will just present to you the policy recommendations. So this was the 3rd part of the Wake Up project, and our goal was to formulate policy recommendations based on the research and the piloting that has been done by our other partners in the first 2 project phases. And I would like to present to you some of the results. Yes, first of all, what was our objective or goal with formulating these policy recommendations? Of course, we would like to increase the political awareness of the need for enhanced career orientation in times of an ever-changing labor market, if we're looking at AI and the green and digital transition. So we would like to awake some political support on the European and the national level to improve framework conditions of vocational orientation and achieve a systemic improvement. Because as you will shortly see during the actual recommendations, there are some overarching trends that can be seen both on the European and on the national side. So I think this calls for a systemic change. So just to give you a quick look on how we developed the policy recommendations, it was a bottom-up approach, connecting grassroots experiences So on the ground, working with parents, with teachers, and the pupils in the partner countries, combined with the European expertise. So in the first project phase, we developed a questionnaire for teachers that included questions about factors that hinder or empower young people's transition to the world of work. And this questionnaire already gave us a good basis of data, which was then used in the second step, where we combined the information the project partners compiled during the piloting of the projects in the schools. And then based on the first two phases, we had some first draft policy recommendations, which we then shared with some national practitioners. So these were educators that were really running these activities from the Wake Up project. And we also organized online workshops and in-depth qualitative interviews with these practitioners from Croatia, Italy, and Spain. Finally, there was some fine-tuning of the policy recommendations, and we got also review and feedback from the expert panel that is present today, which was the final step of the policy recommendations. And just to give you a little heads up, what the next steps to come are, is that we will translate all of the policy recommendations also in the other languages. So they will be available in English, Italian, Spanish, and Croatian. So then the dissemination in the partner countries will also begin after this conference. Okay, but now let's look at the specific policy recommendations, and they all follow a certain structure. First of all, we divided them by regions. So there are recommendations for the European level, and there are recommendations for the country-specific, Spain, Croatia, and Italy. Of course, they are also addressed to different stakeholders, but they all follow the same structure. So they all have a title, then who should act, what needs to change, and why is this change necessary? And now I will show you some selected policy recommendations, first on the European level and then on the national levels. So here we have the first recommendations on the European level. The first recommendation is called Boosting Career Guidance. So what this includes is that career guidance should be a priority in the context of the European Year of Skills, which is still running until May 2024, but also beyond. And this could be achieved by specific conferences, enhanced exchanges of good practices, but also dedicated council conclusions. We believe that various good practices exist in Europe, but it's still, the delivery is very heterogeneous and very insufficient. And we think that good examples could inspire improvement amongst member states and regions. And just to put it a little bit into context, the last Council of the EU resolution on guidance dates back to 2008. While parallelly, we are looking towards a future marked by labor shortage. So we think that guidance can be also a solution to labor shortage because it is essential to prevent skills mismatch and dropout of pupils. Then the second recommendation, which is called More Country-Specific Recommendations on Labor Market Transitions and Skills Acquisition. So we believe that the European semester process should put more emphasis on topics like vocational education policies, employment stakeholder collaboration, skills delivery for orientation. The European semester process and the country-specific recommendations are a very useful tool for the EU Commission to recommend specific actions to the member states. It could be used to put an emphasis on the points mentioned. This could be fostered by allocating ESF funds to these specific topics mentioned above. So we think that this is how the EU could target member states directly, although, of course, education is not a main competence of the EU. Then the third recommendation is called More Learning Mobility. So EU funding programs such as Erasmus Plus should increase support for learning mobility amongst pupils, students, but also maybe more mobility opportunities for educators and career counselors. Education system, but also career guidance benefits very much from internationalization, exchanging good practices. educators and teachers, they have very important multiplier role in this context. And by their mobility, it could also bring a more systemic improvement around the European member states. And the last recommendation that I will present on the European level is to further increase the European financial support for vocational orientation. So funding programs such as Erasmus Plus or the ESF, as well as the Next Generation EU Recovery Instrument, could focus on topics like digital skills, green skills, lifelong learning, early career guidance. So we think that by this, also the vocational orientation could be further fostered, and sufficient funding, of course, increases the quality of learning and guidance, but could also foster innovative pilot projects and scale as a good practice around Europe. Now we can go to the next slide, which are the country-specific recommendations. Here I will just point out some examples from sorry, every country. So for Spain, we have the title Teacher Training on Orientation. So what would be the recommendation is to establish a standardized and regular quality training on orientation for teachers and counselors. Maybe it could also be with introducing and creating a mentorship program for new teachers, pairing them with already experienced teachers for mutual learning, but also about exchanging about best practices. This would ensure a continuous and professional framework for teachers to stay updated on the latest teaching methods and technologies. It would empower teachers and counselors through the up-to-date vocational orientation, and of course also raise awareness amongst teachers for early orientation, and also avoid that early orientation is an individual responsibility of teachers, maybe beyond paid working hours, but it would be really anchored in a program. And for Croatia, we have the recommendation, improve working conditions for teachers, which is of course a very broad field, which can also be seen in other countries. So by legally improving working conditions for teachers and standardizing them nationally in concrete terms, less short-term contracts, better training, and social and financial recognition, this could be an incentive for many teachers to also do extra activities like vocational guidance. It would help to avoid a lack of teachers as faced by in many European countries, and of course also lead to more motivated teachers overall. For Italy, we have the policy recommendation for collaboration between education and work. This is something that we see very often, that is very an advantage if the educational system is in very close contact with the real working world or enterprises. So it could be by introducing cooperation programs between companies and schools through internship, work shadowing, but also foster already existing relationships between educational institutions and local businesses. Another idea could be to create a national database of industry-specific skill requirements. So educational institutions like schools could be guided in aligning their curricular with the market needs. So we think that through this approach, innovative career pathways could be boosted, and it would give pupils a very practical idea of their future occupation and labor market trends, as well as overcome stereotypes on certain prestigious careers or not so prestigious careers. This was just a very brief summary of some of the recommendations that we have formulated. As I said, there's a lot that can be done, but also we have realized or identified some reoccurring topics or trends that can be seen on all the levels. I will just name them very briefly, which are educational reforms to establish vocational orientation in the curricula, fighting corruption in the educational system, and fostering transparency, as I mentioned before, supporting teachers, but of course as well investing in education, in the infrastructure, equipment of schools, so that there are nationwide and maybe someday even European-wide standards, and not such an imbalance as maybe in some countries already exists. So yes, this is just a short, as I said, just a short insight into our policy recommendations. Of course, we will, after this conference, share them online in all the languages as announced, so you can have a look into them more in detail. And now, after all this input, we would like to hear a little bit on what you think about the things that you have heard in the past minutes. So please, if you could participate in our Mentimeter. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vicky. Thank you again, Alexis. So please go on menti.com, entering the code 2160086, and I will give you a minute or so to give feedback to the questions that we are asking there. It's about what are the key objectives when it comes to young people's transition to the future of work. And the second question will be, what policies need to be delivered? And that actually brings me to the next step as well, which is our distinguished policy panel. So we are really delighted to have with us today speakers from very different perspectives. And I would kindly ask them to join us on the stage. We have Alicia Homs. She's MEP from Spain, member of the Socialists S&D group. You're also the first vice president of the Ample Committee and president of the Young European Socialists. Thanks for joining us today. We have Csaba Borboly. He is a long-term member of the Committee of the Regions, coming from Romania and part of the EPP group. Thanks a lot for joining us today. We have Cláudia Pinto. You are representing the European Youth Forum, so the youth umbrella organizations for youth organizations at the European level, representing the voice of young people in Europe today. Thanks for joining us today, Cláudia. Unfortunately, we had a last-minute sickness regarding the organizing bureau of school students UBESU. So we will see if later on we can make them join online. But yeah, before we enter the discussion, maybe we just have a look at what the Mentimeter results are to see, yeah, maybe another input for our panelists as well.
I need 2 seconds more.
Of course, take your time. I would then ask Alicia Homs, Csaba Borboly, and Cláudia Pinto to come one after the other for some 5 minutes. Your introduction remarks regarding the topic, as well as what you have heard so far from the project, and then we will have the discussion with the audience. So here are the results. Regarding the key objectives, lead is the answer, empowering young people's understanding of themselves and suitable pathways. So it's a lot about empowering young people. Second place, enhancing educators and young people's understanding of the labor market. And regarding the second question, we will still get your answers. Okay, sorry. So feel free to answer to this one as well. So the question was, what policy needs to be enhanced, which is also a key for our policy panel. Learning mobility and teacher training on orientation are leading. Investment is catching up. Fantastic. We will track these records, the results, and also share with you after the event. So now I would like to give the floor to Alicia Holmes. Feel free to speak from here or there as you want. So tell us a little bit more on how to boost young people's skills for the future. And yeah, looking forward to hearing from you.
Yes, it works. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. For me, it's a pleasure to be here and to, I mean, I was checking the documents also, but to see also the presentation of this project. So to go on the point, because we can talk for many time about this topic about skills. As you know, this year is the European Year of Skills, and I totally share with you that it needs to be the beginning of something bigger, that we cannot stop when it finished in May in 2024, but it needs to be the start of something bigger. So the future of work in the European Union is evolving very fast. We all know it. If we see the artificial intelligence, if we see the green transition, the digital transition, and the teleworking, shorter working weeks. So we have many topics on the agenda that needs to be tackled. So adapting these challenges involves redefining traditional work structures, but for most it involves fostering digital and green skills that was mentioned. I mean, we know that the twin transitions that we call them are really important and that have a key role right now in the European Parliament. So skills are fundamental in all these contexts. They are the basis upon which our societies are built, and they are the driving force behind the economic growth, also the innovation, and also the social progress. So especially if we bear in mind that around the 30% of jobs will be changed or disappeared by 25 years. We see that, I mean, they need to be changed for something, and that we need to cover all these people that is working right now in a sector that will disappear to be in the new one. So we need to to give these skills to people, and maybe sometimes to skill people right now in certain areas that right now are not existing as a work, as a job itself, but that for sure will exist in the next years, because I mean, the workplaces will change. So we need to be having this kind of reskilling, upskilling all the time, because I mean, the world is changing a lot. But we need to be part of the change and see how we can do it. So it's not like we finish the university and it's all done. No, we need to keep improving ourselves, of course, to be much better and to be in the time of these changes that are nowadays on the top of the agenda. So this is the aim of the European Year of Skills, to give this kind of opportunities to work and see which are the fields that we need to improve and to put more efforts to give these opportunities, and also to see how to give the right skills for the quality jobs that we also need to fight for, and support companies in addressing these shortages in Europe. It's quite important. So firstly, I would like to give three main ideas. We need to reinforce the investment in education. We saw just right now the results. So it's quite clear that we all have this idea. And here I would like to give 4 points. So first is encourage a culture of lifelong learning that we call, so both for educators and students. It's really important that the educators are actualized. I mean, that they have the recent skills to then teach them to the students. So here I can say I remember my dad. My dad was teacher for 40 years. He finished. He's now with the retreat, and I remember 3 last years of work at school, and there was a course of English, because there was the need to give to the students some subjects in English. And he said, okay, I will do this, because even if I'm finishing my career right now, I want to learn English and then teach it to my students. So I like to give this example from my dad. I mean, it's really close to me, but I think that many teachers have, all of them needs to do this, to have this is an example of language course, but there are many fields, but I think it's important that all of them, the teachers are the one with the last ideas, with the last technology, with the last everything, to give them the chance to the students. Then I think we need to offer ongoing training opportunities also for teachers, because this could cover not only their area of expertise, but also go beyond, like the example of English courses. My dad was teacher of geography and history, so nothing to deal with English, but he was open to teach this subject in English. Coming from Spain is quite important, Then also reinforce the increasingly important role of the so-called soft skills. The soft skills are really important, such as the critical thinking, the problem solving, the creativity, the adaptability, and the effective communication, which are often overlooked and in traditional education. And it's important because the students need to have also these skills then to go outside the room of the class, of the school, and then have their own opinion on what they hear, and then create and build their own opinion. Nowadays, with the misinformation that is all around, the disinformation is such a big problem, and we need to give these skills from the school, since they are child, because they need to have their own critical, their own ideas to then also be able to improve themselves as persons, And then also foster the vocational guidance at an early age. We also talked about it. So these are the four main points that I would like to highlight. Then secondly, we need to promote a dual vocational training to narrow the gap between the education and the labor market needs. This is also really important because by training students in specific skills that are needed by employers, there will be a better alignment with labor market's demands, because we see that there are sometimes some kind of works and offers of works that are not covered because you cannot find the person with that skills. So we need to give this opportunity in order to also cover this kind of work that are there, and not have people that is not working having the opportunity to work. So this will reduce the skill shortages and will promote the lifelong learning, and will reduce the risk of skills mismatches, where individuals are overqualified or underqualified. That we also have this problem, people that is overqualified, but there is the work that is there, so they need to work, but also there is the other way around. So we need to tackle this both sides. Then thirdly, we need to mainstream the gender in our policies and education programs and work against discrimination. Actually, this week is the European Gender Equality Week. So it's good that we have this, it's very timely, this talk that we will have. So as a society, we have another challenge. We cannot afford to leave entire sectors of the population on the margins of the digital and green transition, especially socioeconomic reasons, age reasons, accessibility, and particularly gender. So in this week, I believe this is very necessary to point at the fact that the European Union is still facing shortages of women on the STEM sector, and also in the education on the STEM sector. So women make up 52% of the European population and 57.7% of tertiary graduates in the European Union, yet they only count for 2 out of 5 scientists and engineers. So this data shows the reality on how women are underrepresented in these kind of sectors. And we are less confident in our own digital skills that men, due to patriarchy and social norms. So unless we modify the educational programs and curricula to integrate the gender perspective, we won't be able to close the gender gap in digital and green skills that, as I said before, are on the top of the agenda. No? So promoting a culture of lifelong learning for all, or building a strong skills partnership through different initiatives such as the European Skills Agenda, the Pact for Skills, or the recommendations on individual learning accounts and micro-credentials are good steps for the moment, but of course we need more. However, as first vice chair of the Ample Committee, I think there is another aspect that can be understood when we talk about skills, that is the decent working conditions, because that's the way we go with improving, with the improvement of the skills. So upskilling and reskilling, as I said before, is really important, but to also guarantee the quality jobs, because we will have qualified people and we need to give them this opportunity. So from here, I would like to give two last ideas to close this first speech, then we will have the discussion. But we need to use this European Year of Skills to discuss how to boost skills for the future, but also as an opportunity to remind employers that labor shortages are the result of low wages, of unattractive jobs, of poor working conditions, and a lack of investment in vocational and educational and training, the VIT. And then also remind companies that it is essential to invest in education and training of their staff to boost the skills for the future and overcome shortages and skilled workers. So in the end, it's a work of all of us. We as the legislative part, we will work on that and we have a focus on that, but we all are part of this change and this improvement for our societies. So thank you very much, and now we will keep with the others. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia Holmes, for touching so many points, but also getting very concrete on what you can do and others can do. Without further ado, Mr. Csaba, would you like to come and present your regards? Maybe coming more from a regional European perspective, so that would be very enlightening as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, the organizers and the project partners. Firstly, I wish to extend my appreciation to the dedicated team behind the Wake Up project and the conference. Their efforts evidenced by the insights and the recommendations we have just witnessed underline the importance of collaborative initiatives in shaping the future of education. So thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to participate in this dialogue and to represent the point of view of the Committee of the Regions, emphasizing the pivotal role of skills in shaping the futures of youngsters and educators. I am honored to stand before you today as a COR member, and I was the rapporteur on the European Skills Agenda for the Sustainable Competitiveness, Social Fairness and Resilience in COR. As you know, the European Committee of the Regions is an institution who warmly embraced the spirit of last year's European Year of Youth, and also COR takes full involvement in the implementation of the European Year of Skills 2023 through awareness raising initiatives and by bringing together local and regional authorities and decision makers at all levels of governance. Throughout the 2022 European Year of Youth, the COR Commission paid special attention to young people's integration into the labor market, education, training, reskilling, and upskilling, which are vital in the context of the green and digital transition and to the fight against brain drain. The COR is already very active in the field of skills policy as well. Within the European Year of Skills, the COR requested that local and regional authorities be recognized strategic partners in the design, implementation, and monitoring of the various strategies because of their responsibilities and the work they do in carrying out those responsibilities. To this end, the EU and the member states need to support local and regional authorities both financially and politically. Local engagement and tailored approaches are the keys to ensuring that the agenda's principles resonate deeply within our societies. I consider that an important challenge of the education system in the EU is how education should be organized in order to adapt to labor market needs. In this regard, it is very important to develop strategies for digital learning in the classroom, to engage and train teachers as key drivers in defining new curricula. Also, it is crucial to reduce the existing digital divide in different geographical and demographic contexts. For example, the less developed regions. Different education levels needs students. Also, another important aspect would be the importance of educators in shaping students' digital skills to provide training and professional development opportunities for teachers. Empowering teachers with the necessary knowledge and skills will enable them to effectively integrate digital technologies into their teaching practices. Europe must also continue to embrace new, more adaptive models of learning and education technologies. Education system need to develop a culture of risk-taking, allowing the cycle of error, learning and success that is fundamental to creation and innovation. And we must ensure the digital world is rooted in our education systems, that we mentor young people, in particular women, and support them on the path towards technology careers. There is a Europe-wide shortage of teachers specialized in upskilling and reskilling at all levels of education. Empowering educators is not hardly a policy objective, it is a moral imperative, and our young people are not just recipients of knowledge, they are active participants in shaping their destinies and the competitiveness of region. The Wake Up project emphasizes on early career guidance and continuous learning align seamlessly with the vision. So I think this is the best way. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Borboly, for underlining these points, the skills gaps. I think there's a lot of echoing on certain points. I think you will have to leave a little bit in advance. So I thank you already beforehand, and any questions that will be directed more to the regional level, we can also then follow up in a written way after the conference. We now have an online contribution joining us from the Organizing Bureau of School Students Union, OBESU. Giuseppina Tucci, she is the Secretary General, and she's jumping in to give the students' point of view.
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry for my voice, sorry for my face. The autumn has reached me and is not being very kind to my health. So let me first of all thank you for having us, discussing this issue of transitioning to a new world of work, in which, as was said before, indeed skills are fundamental, and they're fundamental to run after the many challenges that we're going to face. And for this reason, in my very short contribution, I will use many times the words co-creation, and I think that's the key that we can bring as a sort of like as a contribution of school students, is that whatever we do to address the challenges of a transition to work, or to transition, or any way of integrating the twin transition into education. This cannot be done unless we really create a culture of co-creation for empowerment. We have heard, I don't know, we have heard many times also in the recommendations of the project, but also in the people that spoke before me, the question of empowering students. And for us, what we really just wanted to highlight is that it is key for us to always keep a holistic vision of skills in the framework of lifelong learning, to be able to truly empower students. So to make sure that we always keep in mind that skills are that thing, I mean, at least for us, best of skills are that thing that helps us, that helps all learners thrive in all aspects of their life, not only in the world of work. I don't know if I can take now some time to address some of the recommendations. I think I can see your faces. I don't know if there will be more. I'm sorry, I'm a last minute jump in, so I'm not super ready on the rundown. Can you give me a sign if I can continue for 1 or 2 more minutes on the oh wow, there is more people now on the issue of the recommendations, or if I can stop here and then.
Pina, if you would be able to stay a little on, we could
Yes,
get those questions in the discussion, if that's okay for you.
I am here for the whole time.
Oh, that's fantastic. So thank you so much for this students' point of view. Empowering young people was the keyword that I also got from your point of view. So I would briefly give the floor now to Cláudia Pinto, representing the European Youth Forum, to share a bit your point of view on the matter, and then we will get to the discussion with everyone in the room.
Thank you for inviting the European Youth Forum. I'm Cláudia, where I work there as a policy officer for social and economic inclusion, and I work on transitions from education to the labor market. And as Jan was saying before, the Youth Forum is the biggest platform of youth organizations in Europe. So we present the voices of millions of young people in international level, not just at European Union level, but also Council of Europe or UN. And yeah, thank you so much for having us, and thank you for your work on this and for this project. I really take with me the fact that it's very practical level and practical conclusions from on the ground, and I feel like we can learn a lot from your work. I suppose the main message that the European Youth Forum would like to pass along, and it's the same as always, I suppose, is that young people are not a homogeneous group. They are as diverse as any other age group. So when issuing recommendations or when designing policy frameworks, it's important to have this heterogeneity in mind. And so I can give an example of a document that the European adopted already some years ago, that time passes, which is our quality standards on the youth guarantee. And there we have like different recommendations according to the variety of groups of young people. And to do so, it's important to involve young people in the decision-making processes as well, and to mainstream youth rights and youth topics across different policy levels. And I use the word rights very carefully because it is indeed a youth right. Sometimes it can be the perception that these things are a gift or a nice to have, and they're not. They're a young people right to good education, to good career guidance, to decent working conditions and decent transitions from education to the labor market. And so I suppose from the recommendations that you issued, the one that I would firstly like to highlight is the European semester. I do think that it's a good avenue to achieve impact and specific impact given the country-specific recommendations that it involves. I can give you the example of Portugal, where it got a country-specific recommendation last year to ban unpaid internships in the recognized professions, and that became a law this year. And yes, so the European Youth Forum continues advocating for a ban on unpaid internships at EU level. And yeah, we continue with that fight. But yeah, I suppose as well to have this sort of comprehensive approach to policy making and to youth policy and the transition from education to the labor market, it requires appropriate funding, which leads me to the second recommendation that I want to highlight from your presentation, which is the ESF Plus. And currently, the ESF Plus earmarks 9 billion for youth employment, which is, of course, something that we welcome and we recognize that it's significant, but it's still not enough. So, for example, previous research from some years ago by the Eurofound put the number of the youth guarantee at 50 billion. So that's quite a big difference. So appropriate funding would mean that staff from public employment services and from teachers can be well trained to deliver the recommendations that we all are issuing today. And so those would be my main 2 points that I would like to bring. And then I would just like to briefly comment on the gender bias aspect that we also heard here today, which I ask myself how that will impact then the pay gap because of the differences in the STEM sector that we heard today. So I think it's a reflection that I will also take with me today. And although it's not, I mean, to my knowledge, a formal position of the Youth Forum, I would like to conclude also with the aspects of the emotional intelligence, I think was the word that was also mentioned in this project, of seeing the young person as a whole human being and not just activating it to the labor market. So that's also an aspect that at least myself personally will take with me and agree with. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Cláudia, also for really getting down to the recommendations and giving your feedback and insight on those matters. Now it's really your turn to come forward with your questions. If you're following us online, please use the chat function, put your questions out there. For those in the room, you can start thinking about your questions. As Mr. Borboly will have to leave us quite immediately, if there's any question regarding his work at the regional level, I would take this question first. Otherwise, I would actually have one question there, because we are operating at the crossroads of education and employment, where competences are very different. On education, the EU can do just exchanges of good practices, monitor. On employment, it can do a little bit more, but the repercussions are really huge, because it's one single market, and there's brain drain between member states, or there's a lot happening in Europe. So where do you see, like, operating at the crossroads, where can the regional and local level make a difference, and where there needs to be more communication also between the sectors, because I feel it's really regarding all the levels, and it basically makes reform so difficult as well, because there's a delay in reforms in education, whereas technologies go so fast, and policymakers are trying to catch up or put the right stimulus. So where do you see the regional city level in this game of accompanying this reforms and the innovation that is needed?
Yes, thank you for the question. The majority of in the states in the European Union, the local and regional authorities is the they organize the activities, education activities in schools. So the infrastructure, the investments, the financing, the projects is one of the tools in the local and regional level. In the other ways, the monitoring, I think having a standardized and rigorous system of education evaluation in the EU level is crucial. So the standards and the monitoring, and I think across the member states, fostering consistency and quality. That this is the main key to have these possibilities, because you need to identifying areas of improvement and implementing necessary reforms to keep education system dynamic and to be possibilities to have change. One of the big problem in Europe is not only differences between the states, but inside in states, the regions is we have many challenges which need to correlate and to standardize and sustain. So I think these efforts not only enhance the quality of education, but also contribute significantly to the EU's goal, fostering a skilled, adaptable and competitive workforce. So I think we need to go in this way, and the committee of the region is a voice of the local and regional authorities in the European institutions. So we try to go in this way.
Thank you so much for your action and for being with us today. We will then gladly follow up. Are there any more questions in the room? First reactions regarding what you have heard, something you would like to elaborate on? Then I'm happy to take it, as well as from the online community. Yes, please quickly name yourself and then put forward your question.
Hi, my name is Rosa, and I work as part of the DEAR programme, which is working on development, education and awareness raising. And my question was more in relation to global citizenship education, which is something we are trying to do, to look at how to influence young people, but all people's awareness on global issues. And we spoke a lot about quality jobs and about skills, but how can we raise awareness on the challenges that are facing our current society? So looking at climate change, migration, and looking at more of these soft skills and not skills, particularly in relation to the labour market. And Cláudia Pinto spoke about emotional intelligence, and this is something I really think is important to get young people to become experts on these issues to deal with the challenges facing tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. That's a very interesting question. Are we preparing young people for the labour market tomorrow, for their life of tomorrow? Is this different skills, or are they similar? I don't know who would like to react. I'm also looking at Josepina, who can of course react, but would you like to take this one?
Yeah, I think it's a really good thought that you share with us, because I mean, nowadays we have these challenges on climate change, as you mentioned, or also on migration. There is, I think, the wrong idea that the right and the far right is moving through Europe to give this kind of hate speech to these people, that they are dangerous, or they are, I mean, many things that, I mean, I'm not in this line, to be honest, so I will not repeat them. But the truth is that we need this migration because there is many opportunities in the labor market. And in the end, there are kind of works, I always say, there are kind of works that, or jobs that are there, and that these people that is criticizing to the migrants, they would never do these kind of jobs. And the ones doing these kind of jobs are the migrants. So how you are able to speak in a way that you want to expel them from your country or from the European Union, but I mean, they are helping you as a society, because we need to live together. We are talking about people. It doesn't matter if you are a migrant, if you are young, if you are, I mean, we are talking about people, and we need to give opportunities to people. Of course, we need to put a focus on these kind of people because we are the ones in the end, and I'm talking we because I'm a young woman and I also have my own difficulties, but in the end, we need to be aware of these, of the situations of these people. But of course, we need, as you said, this global citizenship education. It's really important because we need to give this kind of visions or this kind of skills to people in order, as I said before, in order not to have this misinformation, because nowadays in Europe is really dangerous. And I think it's important that people have all the tools, at least they need to know how to use these tools to have the information, and then they have their own idea. Of course, you need to build your own ideas always, but it's important that you need to have the tools in order to have or build these ideas from your side. So I think, I mean, it's good the question that you did. Thank you for that, and I think it's important that we all work on this way. I mean, if you have any report on what you are working on or whatever, please, I'm always happy to receive this kind of input, because now that I have Cláudia here, I mean, she mentioned the unpaid internships issue, and I work really close with the European Youth Forum. I always like to call and say, okay, what's your perspective on that? And listen to many other people and then build my own idea. So if I do that as politician, because I have the tools to do that, why not the citizens? So yeah, I would say that on the question. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, then we will listen to Josepina also from Obesu to respond to this question.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to answer a bit yes to this question on global citizenship education, soft skills, and I think it goes very well in hand with some of the recommendations that you have made in terms of EU-wide recognition of qualification and skills, which is something that cannot happen sort of like in a vacuum without thinking of all the debates that we should be having around the issue of recognition and validation of non-formal and informal learning. We think that indeed to be able to really that at this very moment we are in a very dramatic actually situation for the reality of global citizenship education, civic education, and the different sort of like practices of democracy and participation in schools. In most of the countries, I am sorry for the coffee machine. I hope you are not disturbed by it. We are in a dramatic moment because there is a big backlash in many countries in the European Union around the inclusion of wider global citizenship education, as well as with the acceptance of the principle of the fact that global citizenship education and skills for citizenship need to be practiced. They cannot only be taught, and it is way beyond teaching the constitution or the basic laws of a country. It is more about practicing them and making sure that we create active citizenship, active citizens. We were recently, as Obesu, in a standing conference of ministers of education of the Council of Europe, of which the topic was relaunching the civic mission of education, and we have heard so much commitment from all the ministers of education that were present. We wonder whether that's actually going to become a reality, because, and indeed on this, I think I wanted to also pick up quickly on one of the other things that Jan was mentioning before as you sort of closed, and it was the fact that yes, indeed, we are in this crossroads of education and employment, and this is a very it's a very special crossroad to be in, because it puts us in a situation where we either treat education and employment as two different silos, or we try to break the silos and think of also the connections that there are between education and training and employment. This is something that we have actually been working on quite extensively. For example, it's for us, I want to say funny, but to not use other words, it's complicated and it's actually counterproductive to have, for example, a committee on employment that works on that and a committee on culture that works on education, and this is the same in the commission as in the parliament. This doesn't help us to recreate a narrative around skills that we want to create, the things of lifelong learning. Voila, I wanted to say one more thing on the recommendations, but I will keep it and maybe see if it comes up later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Giuseppina, for bringing this in. I think there are a lot of points where is consensus, or like we basically agree on many things today, I feel. But I heard one point where I see some more differences, which is regarding the skills mismatch or skills gaps. And if you would take an employer's perspective, you would say, I need better prepared young people. They have to have better education, they need better skills. And then I would assume them, and then we can drive the change and the innovation. If you're on the other side, you would say, maybe employers also have a role to play in work-based training and learning and engaging more with the world of education, being a little bit more proactive or simply offering better working conditions. And this has been made. So I would like to ask you a question a little bit about this, this contrast there between the employer's perspective on things and the education sector's perspective on things. I don't know who's right, or how can both sides come a little bit together. Cláudia, you're working a little bit from the youth perspective, which might be squeezed in the middle. But what do you think about that? And yeah, how do you see these two worlds of employment and education, not only at the political level, as we discussed, getting closer together, but also at the practical level? We have some examples how it could work, etc.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. I would say I would have to side a bit with the latter and say we have to pay attention to decent working conditions at the end of the day. And we heard also today here how job earning is the potential of earning is one of the biggest indicators or for young people to decide their careers. So I would say we would definitely have to pay attention to decent working conditions. Half of young people have a precarious employment contract, for example. They are way overrepresented on these contracts. And specifically regarding the skills gaps and the labor shortages, I feel like there's sometimes this perception that you do your education and then you do an internship and that's it. You know, you're in the labor market, and I don't think so. And we heard a lot here today about lifelong learning and how we should promote that. And you know, I have a position. I work as a policy officer, but then you still have staff training, as I suspect many of us, or all of us at least, should have. And so you keep learning throughout your life. Hence the reason of upskilling and reskilling. So I think these questions should be for the labor market in general and not just specific for young people. While I recognize that for them, it's also a big dimension. And to be more specific, replying to your question, I think that, yeah, I mean, both worlds can win if they work together. And I think it's very important that they don't forget young people when working together and involve youth organizations within that process as the true experts when it comes to youth issues, especially when it comes to outreach.
We should have companies on board. We should have the education sector and the youth sector on board, of course. And I saw another question coming from the floor, and then we will also take the questions coming online.
Hello, my name is Maria Bunga. I work for the EU facility Socialists. We do technical assistance in the field of labor, employment, and social protection. I think that the labor market has changed a lot for young people. There is, you know, a lot of us are migrants because there's no job in our hometown. Also, like, the opportunities that we have are quite different. You mentioned, I think, Cláudia, the contract that we have are quite precarious. And I wanted to know how we can equip young people to face those new challenges, that they will most likely have to migrate to find a job, and that they will most likely be in those fake freelance contract, you know, not having a long-term contract for a very long time. How can we equip them with skills to face this? And also, what can be done more on the legislative side, or what maybe is being done at the parliament to fight this?
Thank you so much. There was a question to Cláudia, but maybe Alicia or Pina. Okay, Cláudia first, and Pina, if you want to jump in, just give us a sign.
Thank you so much for your question. Yeah, indeed, this research is already from 2021, so it could be that the numbers have increased in the meantime. I saw some research from Austria that 70% of young people had a precarious employment contract there, from this research from this year. I think it comes from, indeed, like, how to support young people would come indeed from having those legal changes, because an aspect that we have to take into consideration is that when someone is starting their career, there's a power imbalance. And so it's very hard for a young person to come forward with their abuse because they fear career retaliations in the future, and could also lack the financial means to issue a lawsuit against an employer, for example, or a previous employer. So I think it would have to come from the legal aspect. And, you know, in particular at the Youth Forum right now, we're advocating for a directive which ensures access to remuneration for interns in the labor market, because no one should work for free. It's against international human rights law. And so those would be at least the first steps to empower young people in the labor market.
Yeah, I mean, I share Cláudia's perspective, and here on the paid internships, I have to say that I will be the responsible for this file in the parliament. You know, I mean, I worked really close with the European Youth Forum, with the ETUC, with trade unions, because I think they always have to be there. But in the previous to the directive, we proposed already the text of the directive. Now this is at the point that is in the consulting with the social partners. So hopefully the Commission, I hope from January, let's hope, they will have the proposal, and I will be the responsible for that. So if you have any recommendations or any ideas, I'm always open to listen to that, and I share the perspective. I mean, in the end, you finish your studies. When you finish your studies and you want to enter into the labor market, usually we do an internship because it's like the first step. But what we cannot allow is that we as a generation, I mean, we have been a generation that suffered many crises. We are a generation that the employers are using to work on precarious conditions in many, I mean, not all of them. I don't want to generalize because, I mean, not everybody is like that. But in the end, it's frustrating because you have your idea on what you want to do in your life, and you are doing everything that is demanded, but in the end, you don't have the results. So this thing on the internships, I have to say that for me, it's not just that I want to work with that. I mean, it's the reason why I entered into the youth, in the socialist youth in this case, 11 years ago. And it's something that I really want to fight for because it's not fair. It's not fair for a generation that will start with a lot of frustration their way in the life. So I think it's important that these internships must be paid. That we will have this directive. I mean, I will work really hard on that. And of course, that because from the employer's side, and because of the question you did before, no, on the employer's side, they were saying, no, but you are giving them an opportunity. Yeah, I mean, of course, thank you. You give us an opportunity. But as the campaign you did, I mean, doing an internship, having opportunities is not paying bills, no? That is the campaign that you did. So at least, I mean, something is about dignity in the end, no? So I encourage you also to join this fight. I mean, the Youth Forum is doing a great job on that. Also, the ETUC on this side, also many other actors. And from the Parliament, I will do my best, of course. But I encourage you all to do it also in your own countries, because not everybody has the chance, not that in their countries they already have a legislative side on this ban of unpaid internships, because in the end, I mean, as I said, it's unfair. And also for the question that you did, in the legislative side, we also did the minimum wage directive, that it's really important to tackle these inequalities. In Spain, we already did, I mean, we are on the margins of this directive, because we upgraded the minimum wage, and the most affected ones for this raise of the minimum wage were young people and women, because young people had the chance to have the contracts, like, how you say in English? Long-term, yeah, permanent contracts, and then also for women, because when you have kids and you have to decide if you want to work all the time or just partial time, or this kind of choices that mostly, I mean, I would say always women have to do. So I think it's important also this directive to tackle these kinds of inequalities. Also, there are many others, like we have the pay transparency, we have also like like men and women are paid on the same basis, no? Because for the same position, you cannot be paid more, or give a lower position to a woman that is doing the same job that the man that is in an upper position and is being paid less. So we need to tackle also these inequalities. It's really important. But as I said before, I mean, we need to do it all together, and all the inputs are always welcome to work on that.
Thanks a lot, Alicia and Cláudia. So we talked now a little bit also on the labor market regulations, the inequalities, the lifelong learning aspect. I want, before giving the word to Pina, I wanted to add one question coming also more from the online chat. So thanks for joining there. Coming back to the question of skills and innovation in education, and the person is asking where can we innovate beyond digital skills? So it comes back maybe a little bit to the skills for the future that are needed. Is it now about, I'm being a bit provocative, learning Chinese and Python programming? Or do we risk to educate people for something that in 10 years will be obsolete again because there will be another wave of innovation? Do we rather need to focus on broader skill set, on civic education, on resilience, on lifelong learning, creativity and entrepreneurship, taking your destiny in your own hands, learning to learn? Yeah, that would be one question also on the innovation in education for delivering skills beyond digital skills. Pina, we have quite a panorama there. I hope there's something you can pick on.
Yes, I wanted to also share like my 2 cents on on the previous question, because I think it's very connected also on how to keep innovation. This is I mean, for us, as I said, the word co-creation is very important. When we say co-creation, we go as far as saying that very often, sometimes we need to also think of ways to co-create and forecast for the future together with the newest generations, to make sure that we create labor market policies that are longer lasting and that are actually innovative and can be more applicable in the future, more sustainable in the future. I think this is the case, for example, I really think it's a good question to say, how can we equip young people for this labor market? But I think the question that the mindset that we should have to maybe change the paradigm that we're currently living is, how can we equip young people with the skills to change this labor market? And this means, in a way, giving space for young people to influence the labor market policies, including but not limited to, for example, next year there's going to be European Parliament election. There's always in different cycles there is national elections. It is indeed time to give space to younger people and younger generations to join the political debate as active members of society. And indeed, this also goes by again, building together the labor market we want. Jan, on your last, on the question on how to stay innovative, I think indeed you gave an answer that we would have given as well a little bit. To be able to continue to keep resilient labor markets, in a way we need to work more on transversal skills, so harder skills cannot be the focus, and this is why Obesto is so critical towards the labor market orientation in education, especially in the what was mentioned a bit before, the cooperation between the public and private, and especially, for example, in vocational training and apprenticeships, we see it can be quite a slippery slope to only equip apprentices, for example, with the very specific skills that are required in a very specific company, and that company could undergo another corona crisis, during which they go bankrupt, and then an apprentice is left with very little generic competencies. And this is why for us the key is having a holistic approach, a lifelong learning approach, an approach in investment in education, not only in infrastructure, but also and mostly in soft policies and in policies to create spaces of learning that are self-innovative, and that through the inclusion of learners can actually stay innovative. Because I am pretty sure you all know that young people and school students, they have ideas, and they have very good and innovative ideas to create labor market policies. Maybe if we listen to them a bit more actively, we can create better labor markets for the future.
Thank you so much, Pina. That was nearly a nice closing word, but I would have a speedy final round of interventions of our speakers. I think we had a quite broad panorama, from early career guidance to lifelong learning, from local governance to European frameworks, from specific digital civic skills to broader skill sets to keep up with innovation. But I think we all see that there are gaps in the system, there are lacks of collaboration, there are needs to push for innovation for the young people, for the educators, for the stakeholders in the system. So my question to our panelists would be, like, where do we start first? If you would have a magic stick and you say, here I would put my leverage and I would put all my political, my civil society capital in to deblock the situation, to go into fast charge mode, where would you start, or where do you think is the key to pushing forward progress? I would start with you, Alicia, then Cláudia and Pina.
I mean, it's a difficult question, because choosing just one is quite complicated. But as I said before, I mean, we need to work to tackle the inequalities that we suffer as a generation. And on this field, if I have to choose one thing, I would say the directive on the internships, of course, that will be there, and we will work. I mean, we will work hard from my political group to make it a reality. Of course, we have many other topics to tackle. I mean, the quality jobs, fair remuneration, also the discrimination that we suffer, because I mean, we don't have the expertise, you know. And of course, if you don't give us opportunities, we will not have this expertise never. So I think it's important that we give this, that we raise our voices and tell to the society that we need that space, that we are capable to do, whatever we need, whatever is needed, because in the end, we did what the society asked us. Okay, you need to study, you need to have skills, you need to speak many languages, and we are on this way. If we were able to do that, what we are not going to be able to work in whatever we want to work. So in this sense, the last thing that I would like to say is that don't feel frustrated, because if this fight, if we do it all together, of course we will win, because we made it many times as a generation of even the frustration of the situation, that was not our fault at all. We have been able to put on the table topics as the Green Deal, that is is on the top of the European Union's agenda. And it was because young people was going on the streets every Friday. So if we were able to do that, why we are not going to be able to fight together to tackle these inequalities and to fight for our future. So I give you a lot of hope, but also energy, because we all need you. It's not just about, I'm also part of this fight. Even, you see me as a politician right now, but I'm part of this fight, and I will always join you. So please keep working and keep sending us and pushing us, because that's the way of achieving great things. Thank you.
I will follow on Alicia's word and add my voice to hers in the directive for the to stop unpaid internships in Europe, as like the biggest advocacy ask on social and economic inclusion that I want to pass on to you today. And thank you for your work on that. And if you allow me to cheat and add another one, I will also add earmarking appropriate funding for the youth guarantee, to have appropriate training programs and a youth guarantee that delivers its promises and has quality opportunities for young people.
Thanks a lot. That also joins our policy recommendations, basically. We also got another comment from the audience, from our trade union partners and friends from CSE Youth. Of course, social partners play also a key role in bringing forward the change we need. And so this is indeed a very, very valid point. Now, just a final statement from Pina. Where do you put your magic stick?
For us, it's one sentence. Indeed, our magic stick goes into giving learners space in governance in education and training settings, be it learners in schools, be it learners in vocational schools, or be it apprentices through trade union representation in the companies and training centers.
Thank you so much. And I think it's also what is happening today, engagement between policymakers and civil society, youth organizations, practitioners. We see that the gap is not so big, the engagement is very lively, and we thank you for that. So we say a big thank you to our panelists today, to our consortium partners, to all participants, online and offline. It has been a true delight to present you these outcomes and to discuss the results and the further possible actions with you. What will happen next? As a follow-up, of course, as a participant, you will get all the presentations, the results of the project, etc. Please keep in touch, engage via social media, or feel free to approach our consortium partners. For those who are in the room, our consortium partners are being cozy there on the side, on the couches. You can approach them and ask them any questions you want. We will also have some questions for you for feedback. So we basically created a survey monkey that we will display with the QR code now, as well as in the chat and online. And so thanks for your feedback to let us know how to further improve in the future. We will now conclude on a like networking lunch here on the side. Happy to discuss more with you. And thanks for tuning in online. Let's keep in touch and let's keep up the work together on this for the future skills for young people. Thanks a lot.